Okay, so we are sitting with Elise, and we're just going to go over the feedback for the Unit 4 assignment, which was an interactive documentary project. Now, I say interactive documentary, that's the title of it, but really the majority of the learning outcomes are all centered around this research essay. If we look, you've got 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 2.1. And then 1.3 and 2.1 are shared with the research journals. So it's a way for you to supplement your understanding and to show a high level of critical awareness and things like that. And then we finish with the interactive documentary part. Okay? So if I was to just quickly recite what these learning outcomes are, I'm not going to say the whole thing because they're quite wordy, but you can get a general gist of what they are. So for the research essay, you covered comparing a range of critical perspectives that influence the analysis of production activities. 1.2, applying knowledge of critical perspectives to the analysis of a range of critical media production activities. So comparing and applying knowledge. And then 1.3 is to apply knowledge to support your own practice. Yeah. 2.1 is to critically compare a range of contexts, so comparing them with different contexts. So, like, you know, in documentary there are quite a lot of different contexts, yeah? And that's essentially it. So 1.3 and 2.1, the last two that I mentioned, they're covered also in the research journal. And then 2.2 is the interactive documentary itself, and that gives you an opportunity to apply an understanding of a range of contextual parameters to support your own creative development. A lot of words there, but specifically we're looking at the use of critical thinking and contextual awareness to create products, but also to, explore subjects.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so if anything, it's improving your thinking and writing skills in that way. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over the grading matrix and seeing where this project sits. But it's a pass regardless, like your other projects, and it's only really to reflect on your final project. Yep. Okay then, so let's just have a look at your website. What have we got? Okay, so first of all, overall, a lot of the students struggled to put any sort of contextual thought or critical understanding into their journals, and I think you did a fair good job of that. Do you like creating journals? Do you find it easy?
Not like easy, but I find it like it helps because then I can look back the next day and it reminds me of what I need to do or what I did like the day before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it helps.
I think what a lot of people struggle with is the idea of keeping up with your journals. But it seems to me that you keep the thoughts fresh in your mind. You can see that in the way in your writing. So you're doing it, you know, you're not doing it last minute. So the journals are better because of that. Yeah. There has been quite a lot of research. You have a genuine opinion, and you can critically approach the screenings that we took part in. You did really well there. I would say at some point you might want to consider, sometimes when you've got a journal, just push yourself to do that little bit extra. So for example, if I was to say this one, so Samsara, you did have quite a lot to talk about, okay, and you focus on, even though at the end you conclude with, even though it was really engaging to see different cultures and traditions, I was not really a fan of this type of documentary because I did not like there was not a clear storyline or documentaire. What else could you add to that to bring that up to a higher standard of writing?
I suppose just talk about how, because it was just like why I didn't like that, or like because it was. Just...
It was very succinct. Sorry, probably the wrong word. It was very specific and short, your explanation as to why, and I think you could have used a little bit of elaboration. So, for example, what effect did it have on the audience, being yourself, you know, not having that? Because it's interesting that in the same sentence you said you found it really engaging, but at the same time you didn't like it. It's almost.
I thought it was interesting to see different things.
Yeah.
And I could see like where things were going. Like you saw, there was like one bit where you saw like loads of pigs in a farm. Then next thing you saw people eating. Then next thing you saw the guy in the doctor's surgery, and he looks like he was going like for like a gastric band or something.
Yeah.
So I could see like how it was like going like
that.
that.
The juxtapositions work to have sort of a loose narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there was some points where it was just like that guy that was in his office and he was like throwing stuff all over his face. I was literally thinking, what the hell is going on? Like it just felt like I was like really trippy.
But maybe that's the point, you know. Yeah. But I mean, it's only being used as an example to see that you've obviously got a lot more that you can actually talk about.
Yeah.
So don't necessarily limit yourself just because, oh, well, it's gone 12:15, I better stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, you've obviously got a lot more to talk about, and when it comes to like the final project and stuff like that, don't ever limit yourself when you can continue to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good, and I can essentially say that sort of thing with quite a few other little points. But at the same time, I am appreciating the fact that you are able to give a critical perspective when you're going into your journals. So, if anything, the journals were a way to, you know, supplement the research essay. And with a lot of people, it didn't really have an effect. But I think with yourself, it certainly did have an effect. Okay.
Yeah.
And it did add to that. Yeah. We'll just quickly go into the essay now. Now, one of the things that I'm going to be looking at is research specifically, and the level of research that you go into, and we're going to, you know, apply that to the grading matrix. So just bear in mind, at this point in time, you don't have a bibliography. Okay, so mainly this is because we've got quick quotes from Bill Nichols, and then past that point in time, you refer to films and things like that. Okay, so other than the reality TV shows, you've got only the PDF that I put in front of you. Yeah. So when it comes to independently showing research, it's a little bit limited. So you just got to bear that in mind. That's perfectly fine because you are able to respond, and you've shown evidence of being able to respond to the documentaries and things like that that were put in front of you. But I think this is something that you've already, what's the word? You've already said to me that you're not necessarily a documentary watcher. Yeah. And so it was a little bit difficult for us to find a way for you to approach the subject.
I've watched more since. Like, I did find it really interesting because before I just thought documentaries, didn't realise there's different modes.
Yeah.
I just thought of whatever. And like, if there is a documentary on, like mainly they're on Channel 4, like I'll watch them. Like the other day I was watching one about kids that have Tourette's. And I was like, oh my god, that's so interesting. But like, I wouldn't sit down and watch documentary. Like, I didn't know who Louis Theroux was before.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's part of college and education, university, all of that stuff is opening new areas of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you mature. Okay, so that's fine. It would that these sort of aspects would kind of explain some of the issues I've got with your approach to the context. Okay, so everything's perfectly fine. You're able to provide a critical perspective, and you play with different subjects quite well. It's mainly focused on your comparison between documentary and reality TV. Okay, I do feel like you have at this point in time blurred the line between documentary and reality TV, even though you have in your introduction explained the flaws in reality TV, and almost the moniker of reality TV you put in like quotes, don't you? Because it's not reality, and it's quite obvious to everyone that it's not reality. Yeah, I think this aspect reaches its apex when you mention observational mode documentary. Okay, you've already mentioned Titicut Follies, and you've gone into detail about Titicut Follies. But when you talk about observational mode documentary, you fail to make the link between Titicut Follies and observational mode documentary. I'm just trying to find where it is. Observational mode, yeah. One that we did not watch in class, yeah. So that pretty much stood out to me as a big confusion, I guess, because you're now linking that to reality TV, whereas how would you define what Titicut Follies was? You know, it was clearly observational. If you look, okay, all right, yeah. If we look at just a basic definition of what observational mode documentary is, it's so performative is a direct opposite of observational, where unobtrusive observation of the subject is the director's aim. Unobtrusive, so opposite to Louis Theroux almost. Like even though some would say his stuff fits within. No, it doesn't necessarily. It's participatory. His documentaries fit within because he's participating in.
Yeah.
He's having a direct intrusion onto what he's filming, whereas you know, a observational mode documentaire would not be. Whereas a reality TV show generally is scripted. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I call you back to your point where, you know, they're talking about, like, you know, people getting back from vacation and being surprised even though there's camera people in their house and they knew the camera people would be in there. It's not, yeah, you know, it's the director, regardless of the fact that he's not on camera actually interacting with these people, is intruding. Definitely, yeah. So there's a little bit of an issue there, and I definitely think, to be honest with you, if you were to have another crack at this, you'd nail it. Yeah, because it just, you perhaps needed just perhaps a little bit more guidance, and then, you know, you would have been able to, like, smash this. Yeah. It would have been good to also have a bibliography as well. Okay. But either way, you have covered the majority of what has been asked of you. I haven't had a chance to go through the evolution of documentary portion, but it is important that we focus on what the specific task was. The evolution of documentary, combining the genre with interactive media platforms. To do that, it links really well with your final project, which is the interactive documentary portion. Okay, but you are able to you know, talk about using the Layout app, you know, in your work, only briefly though. Okay, so you have done that, and if you were to supplement what you've wrote in your essay with that, it would have completely covered the assignment. Yeah, you're not the only one that made that that mistake. There was quite a few that did, and yeah, my feedback sort of reflects that. Yeah. Okay then, so we're just going to now go through the grading matrix. Okay, I've got to get my highlighter out. All right. Now, a lot of these, for example, problem solving, planning and production, and things like that, they're not huge things that you were expected to do. But I will be marking this accordingly because, you know, for a distinction grade, you would want to cover all of these sort of things for each task that you have in front of you. And I've hopefully you know, given you in my task list an opportunity to cover everything in some way. Okay, so for context, there is some confusion there, and it perhaps requires a little bit more reading. Okay, so I can also comment on the research as well at this point in time. Okay, and put those at there. Yeah, only because as a marker, I need to find ways to justify a certain grade. So it's almost like you're looking for clues to solve a murder or something like that. You're like, oh, okay, there's that and there's that. So I can make my deductions based on that, yeah? So I can immediately say, oh, the research could be better because of A, and your understanding of context could have been better because of B.
Yeah.
And so we move on from there. All right, so problem solving. Your ability to independently create the layout without really any help or asking me for help and anything like that is really, really good to see, okay? It's a clear merit, okay? With more evidence in, say, you know, your journals and things like that of development of the idea, it would have been better. Yeah, you at this point in time at the end said that things weren't necessarily your strong point, but I reckon, as with anything, more practice in a certain area, you get better at it. Okay, so for your final project, don't ever be saying, it's not my strong point, so never mind, eh?
Yeah.
Think about ways in which you could improve that, okay? And so that could be sitting down with your tutor and getting them to help you, getting it screen recorded, getting it onto your thing. That's primary research that you've been able to produce, yeah? And it's been able to help you, yeah? Specifically, we're looking for, you know, plans, graphic design drafts, and an assessment to your approach to the tasks. Research, obviously, you were able to produce, and an assessment, you were able to do that. But those two, you know, with those, I think your final assessment would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Yep. But we all run out of time, don't we? So there's that. So again, planning and production, there is evidence of planning, but it's somewhat limited. And it's just a matter of going over those task lists again and making sure that you've got everything that your tutor's asking of you.
Yeah.
Okay. So practical skills, adequate range of processes, and a consistent and appropriate processes, skills, and knowledge applied, or an in-depth understanding and aesthetic awareness. Okay. Now, again, you mentioned that Photoshop is not your strong point, and I reiterate what I was saying before. With planning, I would have been able to see a better finish. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Can I make some suggestions of, like, you know, aesthetics?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we've got here is album covers. Yeah, and we've got some titles at the top. Okay. When you're working with something like album covers, you know that they're a specific size.
Yeah.
So what might be a good idea is just to see this in a solid grid.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not. I mean, like, think of the composition of like one of Andy Warhol's like like pictures or something like that. They're just bash, 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 bash. They're all the same, aren't they? Yeah. And it's pleasing and it's organised and everything like that. Yeah. I mean, when we think of albums and things like that, people used to spend an awful lot of time actually organising those albums into alphabetics and stuff like that. Anyway, also the text is perfectly fine, but I think with a little bit of tweaking, it would have been perfect. Yeah, it's just cut out a little bit and stretched just a little bit, so there is some pixelation going on. Yeah. If you, at any point in time, if you've created a bit of practical work, do a little bit of primary research, add it in one of your journals and say, I asked some people for some feedback on my work and they pointed out this and this and this, and so I made the changes. Yeah? It's super simple to do. And, you know, there's loads of ways that you could evidence that. You could just do an audio recording, you could just get someone to just like write some feedback on a note and just take a picture of it. Those are things you could do, yeah? Moving on. So yeah, I would say it's certainly adequate, okay? So it passes and that's fine. Evaluation and reflection, I would say that your reflection is effective. I'm mainly focusing on your use of journals to supplement your essay, but both show a clear critical perspective, your own critical perspective that you're able to apply, okay? So well done for that. All right then, and the presentation, I would say overall is confident, okay? Have you got anything else to add? Other than that, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's fine. I expect, you know, you've gotten feedback from your other assignments and stuff like that, and you're feeling fairly confident about the final project.
Yeah, so far, like we haven't really had any glitches or anything like.
That's good.
Like real bumpers that we've had with some charities take a while to reply.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's nothing on you.
Yeah.
That's them. At the end of the day. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to finish this off.